kind of a lateral squat, you
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
martial
Yeah.
art. It just takes a few minutes, but I found that if I do something really early, first thing, I have a better chance to have a good day.
No, that's good.
And
First thing in the morning.
I need it to keep, you know, keep trim a little bit.
Yeah, I think you have to work a bit harder, I think, as the older I get. I think you're like, oh, to
You
work a
do.
little bit harder.
Even if you do 5 minutes, whatever state we're in, it doesn't matter. Whatever condition you're in, if you do 5 minutes early in the morning, you might want to do 7 minutes.
Mm.
But if you don't do 2 minutes, you're not going to want to do 5.
Oh, yes.
So you have to tease yourself, and of course, even for those of us who were rather physical in our working career, you have to stay on yourself a bit. And the early better.
Oh, are we going? Are we good to go? Okay. So, good evening. Hello. Tonight I am talking to Ira Sedenstein. He is in a phenomenal career, spanning all continents and several genres as well. He's worked with Slava Polunin and directed all kind of classical texts. It's kind of a second generation clown in a way, maybe. And he kind of digs deep into pedagogy and techniques in his renowned workshops. So I am Maggie Irving. I'm a teacher, a clown, and a researcher of clowning, particularly women clowns, and issues around gender, androgyny, dragging, feminism, and how clowns might be able to, maybe we'll have a little chat with Ira about challenging patriarchal structures. Oh, don't go away. There's a little process, there's a little Q&A box. If you'd like to ask any questions, please put your questions in the Q&A box and we'll come back to you at some point. So hello, good morning, Ira, in Australia.
Right.
You have a vast knowledge of clown, and you've published a book. And yes. I love your title, Clown Secret.
Yes.
I love this, an intriguing title. I mean, you really start to unpack what this genre, what this clowning is for you. Dozens of hints, as you say, but we're going to meander a little bit. You kind of
okay.
Yeah. So let's get back a bit. So you're not originally from Australia. Would you like to kind of give us that, that background to why you ended up there? What was that journey, Ira?
Yeah, I was born in the United States. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And after I got out of the Navy, I was in the Navy for 4 years. And then I fell into, I went to a small community college and I fell into the theater there. And then I got interested in clown. And as I tell, I went to a experimental theater festival in Ann Arbor, Michigan, a really big festival. And Julian Beck was there and Richard Schechner and all kinds of people. But there's one afternoon, there were 2 clown troupes. First one was the Great Salt Lake Mime Troupe, and I absolutely loved it. It was out on the green and the grass. I just loved it. And then they said, don't go away to the audience. We're going to tear down, and then our friends are going to set up and they'll do a show in about an hour. So I waited, and that was the Friends Roadshow, and Django was in that, and I really loved it. And I went, that's what I should be doing. Wow. I already felt that from the first show, but the second show, I went, that's it. And I went up to Django and asked him, is there somewhere where you can study clown? He said, yeah, Ringling Brothers has a clown college. I said, okay, and I went away. And I applied, ended up being a finalist, but didn't get in. But I had gone down there in case I did get in case there was room for me to get in. I met an old clown a day later somewhere else, and that was it. Now, how I got to Australia was contract. I came the first time in 1981. I was hired by Mumba to do my solo clown work, and then I did some other things there. And members of Circus Arles, a couple of them were there, and I did a workshop for 2 of them. And then they really liked that. And they said, well, let's do one for more people. And we did one at a dance space. So there were dancers and physical performers and circus people. And that went really well. And they wanted me to set up a school. They wanted to set up a long course for me, an 8-week course for me to teach, to come back to Australia and teach that. And then I was to direct a new show for Circus Oz at the end of that for 4 weeks. And then they were going to perform that. But the dance place lost its fire permit.
Okay.
So I come back, and I got work, a lot of work in New Zealand. Somebody helped me get work there. And then I got work again in Australia. And then the rest is history. I'm sorry to take so long about that, but
no, apologize at all. So I came to clowning, this kind of genre, this movement of clown you talk about, and I kind of came to clown when it's this kind of social and cultural big change in my life, at the time of my divorce. But it was a chance for me, and a complete chance to escape from norms. It was like, wow, this is so liberating. This is exciting. And you in your book Clown Secret, you talk about why people are attracted to clowning. So at that moment, so how old were you? And you said, that you went, oh, this is for me. How old were you then? And these people that you were 23. Yeah. Okay. So when you meet, do you listen to people's stories about, why do you want to be a clown? So what kind of comes across to you from other people that you've met?
Well, I used to listen to that a lot, but I don't listen to that. I don't ask for that. If somebody wants to tell me, I listen, of course. But, it's now thousands of people that come to do our workshops, or have done workshops and taught at institutions. So several thousand people. And what I found, and I write about this in my book, in the chapter Clown versus God, I explain this, that actually what's driving a lot of us is that we're seekers, that we're seeking maybe a better life for ourselves. Some people are seeking that there must be a better way of living in society. There must be a better way to make a happier or more fulfilling or even more peaceful society. And they feel a kind of a calling to do something. And some of those people become politicians. Some of those people become lawyers. And some of those people who are seekers become doctors, and some become clowns. So I find that a lot of people who come to clown are seeking something actually spiritual, often within themselves. And we see that as teachers, that a person says they are coming to clown for one reason, and you wait, and through the creative exercises in theater and acting and movement, something emerges from the person, and maybe they cry, or maybe they're joyful, or maybe they're crying and they're joyful, that they realize something within themselves. They realize that they're actually seeking something. But I also, and I explain a bit about that in the book, I also believe that that's confusing for people. And if I might explain this a little bit further, that what's also happening is for many decades, we have we have lost culture. Now, a culture used to be, in the straight sense, a culture used to be that people had an accent or a language or a dialect, and they had regional dances, they had regional foods. You always had fermented foods as well that were really local, it's a local bacteria. We know this from honey, we know this from wines and beers, beverages, ciders. We know this from cheeses. And of course, the French still have hundreds of different cheeses that are regionally created. So what's happened is we've actually lost culture. And culture is in the body, but it's also in the space around you. So part of the seeking is that we're seeking culture. We're seeking something profound in the human experience. So in some senses, we're inventing it, but people don't realize what we've actually lost. So I have a process of clown culture. I mentioned this in the book, and I have a few exercises that help us to experience what it is that's actually missing within us. And you know, the saying, as far-fetched as it is, we don't like to say it anymore, but the kingdom of heaven is within. And you know, and whatever that means, the universe is within you and you're in the universe. And that's Vinci's Vitruvian man, so, or woman, you know, whatever, human, that it's the macrocosm and microcosm. Okay, that's my mad rave.
No, that's lovely. I like this idea of seeking. It's funny because on several of the conversations, Ira, it's this idea that a lot of women are turning up to clowning workshops, and I'm kind of interested that this idea of seeking something, especially kind of older women. So that's a really fascinating way of saying what's that about, really, and about this. Maybe they're trying to find their culture. Maybe they've gone through those processes of, I've done this and I've done that. Where am I? I'm lost. And maybe that's what that finding that tribe of that
Yes.
clown offers us. That's a lovely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind me if I read a little this out, actually. So no. David Pierce said it of you. He said, "So it is a rare and unique individual who commits himself to a life of clowning. And Ira is such a person. He's also one of the most naturally funny people I've ever met. He approaches his craft with a reverence for a deep understanding of the tradition which he belongs and which he continues his own work. But what is beautiful about his performances, as far as I'm concerned, is that there is always a hint of danger brewing just under the surface. So I kind of like to unpack this idea of the danger and the idea that clowns stepping over boundaries. Is there always a sense of danger, do you think? He's saying this. How do you kind of, the correlation between danger and clown and maybe taboos? Would you like to kind of chat about that a bit, Ira?
Yeah, basically I would say that when the clown appears, even for us as adults, we do not know what the clown is going to do. Are they going to trick us? Are they going to take us out? Are they going to spill water on us? Are they going to tease us with the fake flower? Of course, I'm referring to traditional things, but it's the same thing, that if a clown appears, and now that clown can be a clochard in France. You know, each neighborhood has these vagabond people who live on the street, and in Paris, the neighborhoods, they look after the clochards, but also the clochard, when they come over to you, you don't know how much they're going to ploy or entertain you to get some money out of you. They might sing, they might do something, they might come over so that you can smell how bad they are. And if you're at a bistro and you're sitting outside, you might want to give them some money so they'll go away. You know, so there is a threat with the clown, and they're mysterious, and again, it can have many different guises. It doesn't have to be a traditional looking clown, but they'll come over with some kind of guise. They'll come over with some kind of look or appearance, you know, like an apparition, and they appear, and we do not. We look at them as a form of mystery person, and we don't know what they're going to do. So I think we know that a clown is a contrary, as I think David goes on to explain. They're a trickster. And of course, we said we're going to talk about trickster. And
we are.
And, you know, for me, of course, it's very important sometimes, and sometimes it's just trendy to say, this is a trickster, this is a joker, this is a jester, this is a clown. But for me, they're all very symbiotic. They're related. And one time I might be a clown, another time I might be a trickster, another time I might be a jester, another time
I love the fact you say this. I love the fact that you kind of exploding this idea. It's just clown is this and jester is this. And I think this idea that there's just, I think this reductive idea It's really great in
Yeah.
your book that you really kind of challenge and talk about these, that it's more nuanced, and that, you know, we might flow, and
Yes.
even within a performance, we might flow for something simple and foolish to something that's quite cunning, maybe. And I like, so the clown trickster is kind of really alive and kicking in the
Yeah.
world, and certainly in my own world. This kind of this archetype certainly resonates with me.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk a little bit about how you see the kind of clown tricksters and performance, kind of past and present? If you're going to pick up on who would you go to as a kind of, I mean, clown tricksters? Let's just say people that really were that had those qualities of the tricksters within their performance. Who might you kind of choose from the
Well,
past, maybe up to date as well?
definitely Jerry Lewis, especially when he was younger. You didn't know what he was going to do. And he was an astonishing clown. You may not like his films or whatever, but if you look at some of the stuff he did when he was young, and if you look at the actual clown moments in his films, he was absolutely extraordinary. Now, but he was a trickster. And Jim Carrey, especially when he was younger, you know, now he's a mature, saintly fellow. And Andy Kaufman was notorious. So if you don't know Andy Kaufman, look him up, Google him, YouTube him. And he was an amazing trickster. Django is a fantastic trickster still to this day. And he's a magnificent clown, and he's a wonderful actor as well. And I would call him a colleague. He's a wonderful person. And some people maybe have certainly called me a trickster, and maybe they've called me worse things. But the fact is, I'm a clown, and sometimes if I'm playing, I still like to not trick people to hurt them at all, but trick to tease out our life, that we're alive, and we don't know what will happen next. So I think that you know, I don't know if that answers your question, but that there's a little bit of lineage. Now, those people that I've mentioned are men. And I know that there must be women that are also trickster, but you know that women, the chauvinism or the patriarchy, whatever you want to call it, there's always been a matriarchy, by the way. So there hasn't been a patriarchy and no matriarchy. There's always been a matriarchy, and I grew up in that. In a culture that we have a very strong matriarchy, and we have a very strong patriarchy. But the women have not had the space and freedom to be the wild woman, you know, and to be the crone. So when you mentioned about the older women coming, or mature age women coming to clowning, of course, it's also young women. There's a tremendous freedom in clowning, that the woman can have that trickster self. They can do something uncanny. They can do something that surprises them or their friends.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Can I just add this little anecdote, which just comes up, that when I taught at the National Acting School in Australia, a long time ago at NIDA, and one semester they asked me, would you teach clown this semester? That was for second-year students. I said, okay. So I did a classic clown routine with them from the circus, but you can do it a lot of different ways. And I work with it very creatively, not like it is done in the circus. And sometimes it's really bad in the circus, not interesting, not funny. Anyways, I did this duet routine, and there was two women that were paired up. There were other women couples, and there were men and women couples. There were two men couples, but this group, these two women, they started to do this slapstick bit, and they started pulling each other's hair, grabbing each other's tits, kicking each other in the ass, and they were just having a ball because they were free with each other, and they knew they were free within our environment, the environment I set up. I didn't tell them to do that. They knew they had the space to do that. And my God, they were laughing and laughing. One of them became a very successful actress in Hollywood, Deborah Unger. And I think she's actually born in Canada, and she came to Australia to do that course. But the thing is, women have that as well. But when a woman does something like that, the way that society is, we turn it sexual right away. So they have to be on their guard, unfortunately. But we also know that you have only women groups, and from what I hear, women can be much more free there. So not that they can't be free in a mixed group. You have to set it up, and they have to know, but they also have to learn, and this is really important, Maggie. They have to learn to give themselves permission. Okay. Yeah. So we as the teachers, man or woman, we can set that up to assist the person, but the person must test that ground. They must give themselves permission. So if there's women listening to this, that is something you have to practice, and we have to practice it too. Ira has to practice it. I have to give myself permission to say what I just said. I have to speak right now from my heart.
I'm really glad you said that. I'm really glad you said that, Ira, because I've been on, throughout my life, I've been on various clown training courses, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I think on certainly on 2 of them, no permission, not really, sort of, oh, clowns aren't sexual, and so you're suddenly shutting down the body, or because I think, and it goes back to what we were saying, that stepping over the boundaries. I want to step over these boundaries, whether you want me to or not. And then as soon as you shut down, you start to feel self-conscious, and then it kind of doesn't, and you think, well, that's where I am in my life right now. That's where I am. That's what I want to say. That's coming from within. So it's really lovely that you've got that talking about that permission. Thank you. That's great. I love the fact in your book you mentioned so many women clowns. Lucille Ball, Carol Burnett, all and the first one to kind of start to write about or to mention that these women did clown, because I think prior to when I kind of doing all these studies, there was the odd mention. So we talked about these kind of the elders of sort of the clowning, and the fathers and the mothers of clowning. Who are they? Who were they? And who were they? Was Chaplin as a father, would you say? And are we going back before that? This is kind of screen clowning, isn't it? Really, TV.
And and again, I talk about it in the book that Chaplin and Keaton. I just mentioned them, and there's many more, but I mentioned them as prominent from the patrilineage. And I mentioned Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett as the mothers, as the leaders of the matriarchy. And there were many more. There was Fanny Bryce already, and there was Josephine Baker, and there were others. And there were others in the comedies, in the silent films. Chaplin Keaton always acted also with a woman. Now the woman had to be a bit of a clown to act with him, and she had to understand clowning to be a good partner. Like the men had to understand clowning as well, who partnered. Now, but I mentioned that Chaplin and Keaton grew up in the theater, in the vaudeville or music hall. So they were live performers, and then they went into film, which was the coming thing. Like we're on Zoom now, because that's the thing that's necessary, and then we've excelled with it, and Dave has taken it on, and you've taken it on. So the film arrived when they were young people and very competent clowns. And then it turned out that they were also actually brilliant auteurs. They were creators. But I think that I'm just explaining that there always was this integration of men and women. And vaudeville also had women performers. Martha Graham and some of the early mothers of modern dance, they also performed in vaudeville, and it was very important for them. Loie Fuller, but Martha Graham would do things, and she explained that that's how they learned to perform. That's how they learned to feel the audience. So when she created her, so many, you know, she was one of the most creative performance artists ever. And she created, even until she was 90, I think, a ballet, but a dance. But one of her early dances was a circus clown piece, you know, and you'll see a lot of times with dancers, choreographers, if you look at their very early career, early on, many of them did a clown piece. So they had this instinct, but they didn't follow through with it. But they all were driven to make something like that. So I think there's an interrelation in the men and women, in the masculine, feminine properties within each of us. You know, we all have masculine and feminine energy. That is human nature. I don't know if I've gone off too far from your question. Maybe you can pull that a bit.
No, this is fine. This is about the mother, sort of the fathers and the mothers of clowning. And I like this idea that there were these partnerships and also that link into dance, into, you know, the Martha Graham and creating kind of clowning type pieces of choreography. You don't often see that a lot, really. Not, you know, I think that's more clowning in dance, I guess.
There is some, there is some, there's more now than there had been, but I was just pointing out that there was an instinct they all had when they were young. They wanted to do a clown piece, and they didn't follow that. You know, their drive or the driving forces, or the thing, maybe the audience was more interested in something more dramatic or arty. I don't know, but we have a number of wonderful choreographers who do comedy. And some of them in the ballet world. They've done some great clowning pieces. You know, we have Graham Murphy here in Australia. He's a magnificent theater director. He was a ballet dancer and he's a choreographer, and he choreographs ballets as well as a lot of contemporary dance he did. And he's got a great sense of humor. So he very often had humor in his ballets, especially his bigger pieces.
Wonderful. I love that. I love that idea of humor in the ballet. I think it's got such potential. You don't see a lot of it though. Maybe it will come here. Maybe.
No, you don't see enough of it.
Not enough of it. Yeah, I think so. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the shows that you've kind of either directed or been in. But I just I do want to ask this kind of question. And it goes back to like growing up, I guess. Were you a class clown, Ira? Were you?
Yeah, definitely. You know, and certainly by the time I was 5, I was a big problem. So I was very quiet. I was small, had big eyes at the time, had big eyelashes. I cut them off because the girls went crazy over my eyelashes. I came home one day and my 2 older sisters and my mother, you know, screamed when they saw me.
Your eyelashes off.
I cut my eyelashes off because the girls just loved them. And I was only 5 and it was just too much attention. And, but I was already, well, at 5, certainly when I came home by myself, and you had the Three Stooges on TV, and they were there because they knew the kids were coming home, whether or not they were by themselves or not, but they come home. And so Monday to Friday, they had the Three Stooges were on, like at 3:30 or 4 o'clock, whatever. And I was watching them, and I just, you know, I was the type of kid that I wouldn't watch them sitting. I would get up and imitate them and do things and jump around and fall. And so I would imitate them as I watched. And
that's quite a good pedagogy, isn't it? Would you say?
What's that?
A good pedagogy for learning, watching and
get up and do it. Imitate. Yeah. You know, and some clown teachers say, don't, you know, it's supposed to be original, don't imitate. You must be joking. You must be joking. Every significant clown I know today, you know, all people in my age group or whatever, at least, we all imitated. We imitated what we saw, Jerry Lewis and Red Skelton, and we tried to do their acts, and Lucille Ball, and, you know, Vita Vita Vegemin commercial, you know, that she did. You know, we would imitate all of that.
Yeah,
And
I think we
and
were lucky, weren't we? We were brought up on this huge amount of fantastic clowning, weren't we? From, from Chaplin and Keaton and all the kind of the rough and tumble shows that were on, leading into the TVs of the Morecambe. I don't know what you had over there, but the Morecambe, where you had just such a lot of tip-top comedy, and we watched it. It was voraciously, it was there, wasn't it, for us? Certainly Lucille, but who's the other American? Mary
Carol
Tyler
Burnett,
Moore.
Mary Tyler Moore, yeah, Carol
Great.
Burnett.
We're just so lucky to have that as really class comedy. Anyway, I interrupted. Carry on.
But you see, now the thing is, that's all available to people today. We as clown teachers of clowning, we have to be very careful what we say, because if we have the ideal that you shouldn't imitate, well, this is false. You must imitate. And so people have the opportunity, a young person who's 18 or 20, or if you've done clowning already and you've had a teacher tell you, or if you're a teacher telling people don't imitate, they must imitate. And when you imitate, sometimes I assign people, just do 1 minute of something you see on film or on YouTube. We have a beautiful tool available. Do 1 minute of a great clown, or a clown that you like, or clown routine that you like, 1 minute. And you get inside and find out the innuendos that clown actually was using, the skill, the technique, the agility. And you find out that's how you make clown. So you imitate not to copy, you imitate to stimulate your own ability.
Yeah, to understand, to step in the shoes.
Yes, yes. And I love Morecambe Wise. I didn't know them until many years later. In fact, maybe 10 years ago or something, I had heard about them. And they are absolutely magnificent clowns. Love them. Great.
But you've worked in all genre, haven't you? You've worked circus, theatre, street, every, and which all has different disciplines. Film, have you worked on film too, Ira?
A little bit. And when the film, let's say screen, because film means big cinema, but I was in a featured film, and that film never got released. It got completed and never got released. That was called The Punisher. And in that I played a deaf mute, and I was meant to be the cellmate of the main actor. So I wasn't exactly a clown. I was a deaf mute. I had to do some magic as well. I had to learn magic. I forget, there's a famous actor that he was also a magician. You would know, David. It begins with an H, his last name. Anyways, he coached me on this one trick that I had to do. Anyways, look, the screen work I did a lot of commercials in the mid 80s when I lived in Australia. I did some in New Zealand. So that was screen work. Some of those were clowning, some of those were acting. And I did a couple of things on TV, a couple episodes on a couple, like not exactly soap operas, but like series here in Australia. But I really liked the live performance, to tell you the truth. Now, if I had been making my own shows, or I had the right material that I was acting in, even if it wasn't my own creation, in TV or in film, then I probably would have been quite happy to do that. But honestly, at the time that I was doing some screen acting, I really loved live performance. So I used that a bit to give me a little bit of income, and then I would take that money I earned from like commercials, and I would produce my next theater show.
Right.
So so I've done a little bit of a lot of genres, including things involving singing. I'm not really a singer, but I've done it. I've done things. We had a little clown trio we tried out for a while, and the other two guys were musicians and singers. Bruno Lucia, he's a magnificent singer, an amazing musician, and he was a great clown, great comedian. And he was a student of mine at the Actors Center. And I thought, oh my God, this guy's so talented. And then the next week, another Italian guy showed up. And I went, man, this is amazing. And I told him after I told him in the middle of the class, I said, can you see me after the class? I said, yeah. He thought he was in trouble. And I said, look, I asked him, what do you do? He says, I'm a waiter. I said, you're an actor and a clown. He says, no, I'm a waiter. I said, I know, but you should be an actor and a clown. I said, you're very talented. I said, you coming back next week? He says, yeah. And then he and I and the other Italian guy, Bruno, we got together and we tried to make a troupe, but it was when Bruno's career was taking off for his solo work, and he made much more money than we as a solo than we did as a trio, and we were just starting. But I don't know how I got into that, but that we sang and we did slapstick, and I was the fall guy, so they'd throw me and kick me and throw me in salto, and we continue singing. I also, so I've done a lot of a number of different genres. That is true. And I think that in the end, it's the teaching that I'm more passionate about in a way. And I taught when I was very young as well, but.
Can we talk a bit about the teaching and going back to this idea we talked about the trickster? Is it possible to weave into your workshops, into your pedagogy, the idea of the trickster and it's an archetype, isn't it? That kind of voracious appetite, the sort of this insatiable urge kind of for food and you can't control their body parts, but there's also the kind of the idea that they're also the bit of the shaman. So there's a kind of the shadow side, and also the side that offers change. I always think back to the Feast of Fools, when the young clergy had that permission to overturn the powers through trickery. And so how might, or do you introduce that kind of idea into your pedagogy, into your clown teaching?
Let me say there's 3 ways. There might be 10 ways, and somebody else might have other ways, but there's 3 ways I definitely do it. Number 1, all of my work is physical. It doesn't mean you're an acrobat, doesn't mean you're a mime, but it's physical, and I emphasize that. And even if it has in some text, some of my exercises have a little bit of text, it's still physical. The other thing is I encourage people to develop and discover their humor before I'm encouraging them to be funny for other people. Okay, so when they discover their humor, they're also discovering their trickster or their shamanic or their gesture ability. Okay, so the humor in my work comes before being funny. You'll be funny as a result of your humor, and you'll be funny as a result of your craft and your cunningness to learn tricks of the trade. The third thing is that particularly when I have the duets, like I have the Laurel and Hardy exercise, I have the Lucille Ball, Vivian Vance exercise, I have the Honeymooner, Jackie Gleason exercise. Those are duets, clown duets. And the clowns will start to trick each other. The actors will start to trick each other. Okay, now I have a new exercise. It's only a couple of years old. And this one is called the Sad Sack. Now, Sad Sack was a cartoon character. He was a soldier who was, he was he was a clown. And he looked a bit sad and droopy, and he was always a bit messy. Anyways, the Sad Sack is an exercise. I'll explain this, and you can use this. You put one clown in the chair, actor sits in the chair, puts the red nose on, and they're upset. The other clown is on the perimeter. And after the clown in the chair sets their rhythm, maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, the other clown enters and they taunt the person sitting in the chair. Now this is the trickster. This is the jester. This is the fool. I don't know, there's other words we could say. This is the cunning clown. And they taunt the person, and the person gets more upset. So it's like siblings do. The older sibling does to the younger sibling. I'm not going to do that anymore. I won't do it. No, I won't do it again. And the little child relaxes. And then, of course, the older one does it again. Upset. They cannot go to the actor. This is important. You have to give the actor in the chair physical space. You do not go to them. You can go towards them, but you don't touch them, and you shouldn't get more than preferably 2 meters away. Okay, maybe you can get a meter near them, but generally you shouldn't go to them. The meter's already too close, really. And you pull away from them. You let them relax, and they're still upset because they're in an upset state, and then you taunt them some more. Okay, it's fantastic. And if you or anybody else wants more clarification about that, they can always, you can write to me, and I'll clarify points with it. The structure of all my exercises is very simple, but I must say that is the trickster.
Right.
That, and I call it the sad sack exercise.
Wow. I mean, it's problematic, isn't it? Talking about, you know, tricksters, this and the clown. I mean, when we do morph between the two for the various, let's call them types. So
yes,
but in many clown classes, this is what it is. This is one. It's very. I don't think it's very helpful. So it's really interesting, and that you've had these the pedagogy that can allow those types to appear, be expressed.
Yes. And I think in terms of us as teachers, I think it's been problematic for over 40 years, maybe 50 years of clown teachers saying this is what a clown is. And then the actor who has a different clown tendency is not given permission. They're already told they're not allowed. They already have it. It's already, we've done a signal to them that they're not allowed. So I think it's good to avoid defining what clown is as a clown teacher.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you're a clown teacher and you have a very particular interest or an exercise that's very particular, I don't really have a problem with that, but it's a general thing that we have to be careful of, because if one actor has a tendency to be like a trickster, that needs to come out of them organically and naturally through the clown exercises.
Yeah.
We can also set up, you know, I could make up an exercise about the trickster, and that's okay too. But you see, we have to be very careful, like a parent. You have to be careful what you say to the children. And the people coming in are not children, and we shouldn't infantilize them. You know, they're adults, they're people, they're artists. But we also have to have a caretaker, not to say certain things, because it sends a signal, and they do lock down. Even if they're a very open person, they'll hear this signal to close down. You need to open up.
Yeah. I'm just going to go backwards slightly for a couple of points in the questions. From Sue Broadway, imitate to stimulate. She's great. And it says, copying is a standard learning technique for visual artists, but rejected for clowns. Can you just kind of talk about a bit more in detail, and then maybe just tease out what the fall guy, I kind of know, but just those 2 points, that idea of imitation and the fall guy. Yes,
I think that she's supporting what I've already said. And Sue, of course, is a clown, a circus artist, and a director, and she's fantastic. And I saw her when she was very young, and in the original Circus Oz, and that was, I think, in 1980 in Holland, in their first overseas tour. And I think their first overseas season was in Holland. And they were a full-on clown troupe. It's just that they were also circus and highly skilled. And so, you know, to imitate is to stimulate, is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And again, the imitation is to stimulate your own creativity, your own juices. And you must understand that all the significant clowns did imitate. And even Chaplin imitated other people when he was young.
Nothing's
You know,
original, isn't it? Nothing's original. It's all.
that's right. That's right.
Mm.
And the originality is our unique way of combining different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
another question?
No, that's lovely.
Hi, Sue.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested in just going back a little bit. The clown movement. This clown movement. Do
Mm,
you? And I mean, we've taken this idea that we've taken a bit of a hit to what with clown politicians, but you know, it doesn't mean to say if you can clown or if you can't clown, you can still clown within whatever job you do in life. Whether you're a politician, you can be a great clown as a politician or a really lousy one. And
mm.
then you know, just putting on. We talked about this before about putting on scary masks and going and frightening people. So there's been a kind of little bit of negativity, but I still feel that. Is there that we has this clown community which has really come together in a big way over the last 12 weeks from all around the world, people chatting to each other. It, uh, can this form? Is this movement growing? I mean, how do you view it from your perspective, Ira?
Um, First of all, in the historical perspective, when I call the clown movement TCM, and I talk about this in my book, and it's in that chapter that's called Clown versus God. The clown movement, as we know it, really started in a way in the late 1940s. So the first clown organization started in England about 1947. I think it might be Clowns International. I forget. And they have a Facebook page, but they're the oldest official clown organization. And around the same time, another clown who was also a very good juggler, professional clown, Art Jennings Sr., he started the IJA, the International Juggling Association. But he was a clown. His clown character was Happy Days, and I learned juggling and things from his son, Art Jennings Jr. And so the clown movement had a history. The clown movement, as we know it, had a history. There was also Wavy Gravy, who was very important in the counterculture already in the 60s. All right. So he was doing clown and a little bit of circus stuff. In the counterculture, the hippies, Wavy Gravy, and then you had Lottie Goslar, was a German clown. She had been a modern dancer, I think, with Mary Wigman in Germany, and she left Germany in the 30s because of the politics, the rise of the fascism. So she left, and she was able to get to the U.S. and she eventually became a full-on clown. She was a magnificent clown. I saw her live perform her solo show. It was very significant for me to see when I was just about to start clowning. And in fact, it's a German professor of mine who taught me political science and sociology. And he knew that she was performing, and we drove and saw her. And I met her, and she had a troupe called the Lottie Goslar Pantomime Circus. They toured all around America for decades, and they were dancers. She would take new dancers every year and teach them mime and clowning and the clown routines. And we would look at them now and go, oh, they're a bit fey and all that, but she was really important and significant, and she was a great clown herself. You know, you can see some of her stuff on YouTube, but again, we look at it as dated or whatever. But when you saw her in the theater, she was just magnificent. She had a great piece called "Grandma Always Danced," and she did a clown piece about her grandmother who always danced, and she portrays her grandmother, and it's a great clown piece. So the clown movement that's the contemporary history. But if we go back a bit further, and of course it's evolving, it's not necessarily improving. but it is evolving. So we have now Clowns Without Borders, and we have clowns in the hospitals, and clowns for dementia, and clowns that are developing for different health needs. So there's great things. You've always had the clowns in the hospitals, by the way. The circus clowns always traditionally went to the hospital. It might be more around Christmas and Easter time, but you always had clowns going into the hospital, volunteering.
So are we moving in a good way in clowning? Because it's always mutating. The clowns are always mutated in accordance to social and cultural structures. So kind of where are we mutating? How are we mutating?
I think that we have to, I hate to say this, but I want to find the positive way to say that is we have to purge ourselves as the teachers of clown of anything dogmatic, saying this is what a clown is and this is what a clown isn't. And I think that we have to assist even ourselves, but we have to assist the new clown who may not be a mature age person. The new clown isn't necessarily a young person, but we have to assist them to learn how to see their elders, learn how to see and appreciate. You don't have to like, you have to appreciate the older clowns, Lucille Ball, Carol Burnett, Chaplin, Keaton, Laurel and Hardy. And if you look at the spectrum, you'll see suddenly one of those people, it might be Charlie Chase, it might be whatever, it might be any of the Keystone Cops, it might be something completely obscure that you didn't think you would be touched by. And it will touch you. And it will go, wow, how did they do that? So we have to find awe. And this is another thing about the spiritual side of clowning, that we've lost this sense of awe. And my generation was really in awe. Now, Slava and James Terray, I think they've returned us to the greater level of awe. You know, Slava meaning the whole snow show, and James Terray meaning whatever he does. But you know, you'll have different clowns that you prefer. I saw Hillary Chaplin I had heard about, and she probably had heard about me, and we were teaching a week in a group of us were teaching in Quebec City. And so we got to spend time together, and she's such a great person, and she's a magnificent clown. And she has this solo clown of the woman by herself in bed, and the bed is vertical, you know. And she has another clown show, I haven't seen it, about Theresienstadt, you know. So I
interviewed her a few weeks ago, Ira, and fantastic clown. Fantastic clown. I love this idea of awe.
Yes.
I absolutely agree. We're coming towards our 10 o'clock. I'm going to come back to you in a moment. Oh, I love that, because I think you're absolutely spot on. That's what
I want to mention. I mentioned her in terms of awe because, you know, James Terray and Slava are doing these big grand shows, and Hillary is doing these more intimate shows, and the awe is still there. So whatever stimulates your awe as a clown and as a veteran clown, go to that awe. Go to the thing that opens your heart, opens you to rediscover clown. Okay.
That's a fantastic finish. I love that. I have to thank Ira. We've got time for some more questions, a couple of questions. If anybody would like to put something in the question box. Oh, thank you, Ira, for getting up from Australia and coming on and chatting. It's been a real privilege. Thank you, audience out there, for listening. If you're not out there, we can listen on YouTube later. Thank you, Dave, on Zoological, for putting this on and making it work. Please contribute via Patreon. Give some money towards putting these events on. You know, you're going to be in the on the website. You'll be supported. So it's Patreon, and I'm going to spell that for you. Ooh, get my sheet of paper. Yes, Patreon, patreon.com/zoological. And there's people already contributing, so be one of those folks, please. On Sunday at noon, we have Sue Broadway and Deborah Batten talking about their collaboration. How exciting, how exciting. Looking forward to that. This video is going to be available. Please share it, folks. Share it with all your friends. Anybody who's interested in clowning or performance and theatre. Oh, fantastic insights into the world of clowning. And thank you for writing the book, Ira.
Pleasure.
Available on Amazon. I put it onto Kindle, but I'm actually going to buy the book. I do like pages. I like to turn down corners and underline things, and I just like a book. So have we got any questions before we finish? No, we haven't. Ira, is there anything that you would anything you'd like to add?
How many minutes do we have?
Well, we can keep going. Ooh, keep going. Yes, we can keep going. We've got some more time.
Okay, yes. Let me tell my last exercise in my template, the 4 articulations, the very last exercise, and it does have an order. You don't have to do it in that order, but when I teach it, I do it in the order. The last exercise, and I rarely get to it, is that a clown, to tell a story of a clown. Because clowns live on not just in the theater and in the circus and in the performance situations. The clowns live on by us telling stories about clowns. Now, clown could be our grandmother. Clown could be somebody that we knew, and we tell somebody a story. The week that Hillary and I met, there was one night on a Friday night, Shabbat. The teachers were to do a soiree. So we were to perform, and I don't do acts anymore. I stopped doing clown acts, 20 years ago. I improvised more. So I said I would help if somebody needed props taken on or off. What happened was, and then I was going to assist the MC. And then I did a lot of things. It ended up, Django counted them. He told me the next day, he came up to me, 75. I said, what are you talking about? He said, 75. I said, what do you mean? He said, you did 75 entrances last night, Ira. And he said, those are just the ones I saw because I had to get ready for my act. So I did probably over 100 entrances, right? Now, at the beginning of the show, I have a little bag with clown noses that I use for my workshop, and I don't clown often anymore. But so I reached in there, and I cannot believe it. It was like magic. All the clowns the noses were intertangled. The strings were intertangled. I could not believe it. And I sat there in my clown costume that looked like a little puck, a little jester, all in red. And I sat there and I became so innocent, like a child. And Hillary came up and I said, Hillary, you have to help me. She says, what's the matter? And I said, I can't get one of the noses. I can't get a nose free. She said, let me help you. You may help me. And she became so sweet, like my sister and my older sisters. And she had to help me. She said, and it wasn't her problem. So she was able to go through it and untie them and get the noses free, and I could take the one I wanted. And it was the most magnificent relation with these 2 older clowns, that we were pure and innocent like we were when we were young clowns, and we still have that within us. Now, another quick anecdote, clown story. Last year, Django hired me to teach with him for a week in Barcelona. He teaches there every year for a month, and he has different guest teachers. So this one night, he wanted me to perform, and he got a couple of us, can you do something? So I said, okay, I'll do something. And then after I came off, he did another act, and he came off and we're backstage in this tiny little venue. And he says, Ira, help me. and he had to get his clothes off and change costume. Okay, so I helped him. He said, and then he said, get this. Now he's standing there like in his jock strap, and he said, help me get this. He took this other, and it was a dress, and he put on this dress, and he said, oh my God, I haven't had this on in 4 years. So he had gained weight. So there I am dressing him and trying to get him ready for the next act and get it on. And his partner, Claudia Cantone, she came off, and she looked at it, and she said, Django, what are you doing? He said, what do you mean? She says, you're not doing that act. He says, yeah, I'm supposed to do the lady next. She said, no. He says, yeah, that's next. She says, no, you changed it. She went over, she got the paper with the proper schedule. And oh my God, he said, all right. So I'm helping him take the dress off now. And I'm laughing. And I really could have burst out laughing. And here we were, particularly he and I, these two old clowns, and I'm just trying to dress him. And then I have to help him with the rest of the costume, the new one, and get his arm in and help him with that. And it's like The Dresser. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's a great movie called The Dresser. And a dresser in the English tradition is a person who helps the famous actor change their costume and make sure everything's right, and gets ready for costume changes for them, and maybe makes them a cup of tea or whatever. So I was like Django's dresser, but the two of us were there, and it was the most magnificent truth of the real clown movement. And it's the same with Hillary. It was the truth that we are really together, and we do compete. We're all looking for work and how we're going to sustain ourselves and all that. But deep inside of us is our humanity and our special calling as seekers, as clowns, and we're actually deeply united. We often may not agree on things, but in our heart, we're actually united.
Absolutely hilarious, Ira. It's absolutely the great visual of you. And I know I've not done that, but that great big knot of noses. This is just a fantastic visual, and it's but it's that lovely pain, isn't it? The pain and the disaster, and how out of the disaster is the clown picking the noses. That's not quite the right.
Right.
I love that dressing, and you've got a fantastic visual of trying to get this frock off, this dress off, and get it on, get it off. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It was great. It was a great, deep moment.
That's and beautifully recounted as well. Anybody got any questions? Lovely. Oh, of course, people are asking for your book. How can I find it on Kindle? Sue, go to Amazon. And it's there available via download on Amazon.
Can I also say quickly
about Jewishness and clown, but you've talked about Hillary, cultural identity. Yes, it's the clown. There's a lot in the world of comedians and female comedians. So many absolutely tip-top comedians are Jewish. So is that, and tell me. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about
the thing is. The Jewish clown tradition is very rich, and it emerged in a popular sense in the early 1900s. But it had already existed. It exists in the Torah. There's humor in there. My actual name is a Hebrew name, so it's a like an indigenous name. It's Yitzhak ben Israel, which means Isaac, son of Israel. So my father's name was Israel, and his father's name was Isaac, and I'm named after him. And Isaac means to laugh. So this is already in the stories in the Torah, that when Sarah, Abraham's wife, was told she got the message that she was going to have a baby, and she was like 90. And that's why Isaac is named to laugh. Okay. And then it has other meaning, and it takes on other, Isaac as a character takes on other meanings. But I'm on a steady rediscovery about what it means to be Jewish. And I think without getting stuck in religious dogma, it's so interesting to study what is in the Torah, what's called the Old Testament. But you have to study it. You can take one story and you can find many, many ways of looking at the story. So I think that again, deep in us as humans, we have a very deep level to our beingness and our culture. And we need, as a human race, we need to go deep into our cultures again. And that doesn't mean our culture versus another culture. I mean the opposite. But the deeper you know yourself, the more the more you see and respect the beauty of those different flowers that are other people. And that includes their warts, that includes their weaknesses. So I think that the Jewish relation with clowning is, we don't like to talk about it because there is anti-Semitism and there's other political reasons. And then it can interfere with people hiring us because we are Jewish. So a lot of us, don't want to talk about it. I'm free to talk about it because I don't care. And I'm not looking to be hired per se. I'm not a clown performing anymore. So I'm a bit open about it. So we can talk about that in another session more. But I want to relate it to finding your culture. In England, I'm sorry, I have to cough, I think. In England, it's early morning, so you're just clearing out.
Right, cough, it's okay. Well,
that in England, even up until the 50s and maybe into the 60s, you had these different regions that had significantly different cultures and dialects and histories and songs and traditions. So the English are also indigenous people. And then we know, of course, that now people are saying the Romans didn't just come and leave. They also stayed, Of course they did. In Vikings, we know they stayed. So whatever it is to be English, okay, we can discuss that. But we don't understand. We've lost the sense that we've lost all these beautiful cultures. Sometimes for good reasons, because we have to open up. But we've really thrown the baby out with the bathwater in terms of culture. And the Jewish culture is something that everybody can go to. It touches all of humanity. So learning about it doesn't mean taking on all of the mitzvot, what they're called, what are called the commandments or whatever. But it means understanding something about the human drama, the human saga. So as clowns, we're all living, and we're also meant to portray the humanity in us. So the clown expresses that humanity. They have their heart on their sleeve, the saying. So they let out that humanity.
You think the clown is the clown is the survivor, yeah? The clown is the survivor, the outsider, and
Well, the Jew is a survivor. The Jewish culture is a survivor. It's very interesting. And even if you're Jewish, you have to get away from things that you didn't like, or things that you misunderstood, or things that have been projected onto us. It's the same as being a woman. You're a leader in our world. You're a leader in our society.